Hey there, gang. So now I am in Flushing, New York, and we're waiting on a event with Andrew Yang. I'm here with Yoon Jae, and he is ready to go. This will be the first event that I've seen Andrew in since the basically when we had the after party in Nevada. So that was the last time I saw Andrew. So that's where we're here, and it's hey, Yoon Jae, is this like Chinatown, Flushing? You said
this is like a Chinatown. It's also a Koreatown, and then on this street it's kind of weird. There are actually a lot of Chinese Koreans, meaning they're from northeast China. There's an area in China called Yanbian, and there's a small ethnic Korean minority there. Kind of interesting. You have like a Koreatown over east, which is like the reality in like the world, you know, in Asia. Like you have China, and then you have this Yanbian region, and then you have, you know, Korea. So it's kind of like that here in Flushing too. Like you have Chinatown, and then you have this area where it's like the Korean Chinese, and then you have the Koreans from South Korea over on the eastern part of the town. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for that explanation. There's Ron Kim. Walk in over there. And we have a gang sighting.
Hello everyone, thank you for being here today. This beautiful, nearly summer day in Flushing. I had an incredible meeting with a group of home healthcare workers who worked for years in very, very difficult conditions, often 24 hours a day, in ways that were physically demanding, even punitive. And unfortunately, many of them bore visible permanent injury as a result of working to take care of people 24 hours a day. And if you know anything about home healthcare work and taking care of another individual, often you have to move them, shift their body weight. It's extraordinarily punishing. And this can be even more true if you are a woman of color, as the vast majority of home healthcare workers are. And so meeting with them was touching and even heart-wrenching, because you could see that they had worked so hard taking care of other people that some of them could not close their fists. Some of them had permanent back injuries, and you know that they were going above and beyond to take care of someone who was entrusted to their care, but they also weren't getting the support, they weren't getting the rest, they weren't getting the kind of recognition or breaks that they need. And this is an industry that's only going to grow in importance here in New York City and around the country. The estimates are that we have 440,000 home healthcare workers. That's going to go up to 700,000 over the next number of years. And again, these are majority women of color. Their median wage is $22,000 a year, so many of them are struggling in poverty themselves. So we have to help. We have to recognize that what my friend Ron Kim calls the caring economy is only going to grow more and more important and central here in New York City as our population ages, as more and more of us need people to take care of us, the people to take care of our parents and our loved ones. And I'm so happy to be able to champion a number of changes that need to be made here in New York State. And Ron Kim, my friend who represents Flushing in the state legislature, is going to talk about some of these changes, and right here in New York City. So some of the things we have to do as quickly as possible. So the first thing we have to do is we have to put an end to 24-hour shifts in New York State. Yeah! No one should be working 24 hours a day. And if you are entrusted to take care of a person who often will need to get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night when they're sick at night, a number of the workers I spoke to were struggling with insomnia, in part because they were working 24 hours for years. And imagine having the health very difficult to sleep soundly next to that person because anytime they had an issue, you needed to be up. So we have to put a stop to 24-hour shifts. It's actually inhuman and unsustainable for anyone to work 24 hours a day for weeks, months, even years on end. Now, what should the limit be? The limit should be 12 hours. I think that most of us can see that as very reasonable. If you work 12 hours a day, that's actually a very long, demanding day. And then at the end of a 12-hour day, you would at least have a little bit of time to yourself to rest, perhaps check in with your own family. And we should keep in mind that in so many cases, these home health care workers have families of their own. They're being put in a position where they're not able to maintain any kind of normalcy in their own family life. Now, New York State was one of the first to declare a domestic worker Bill of Rights. We have to reinvest in making workers aware of their rights under state law. And many of the home health care workers that I met today, but also citywide, were immigrants. English may not be their first language. They may often be unaware of what they're entitled to under state law. We have to invest in making them aware of their rights so that they are free of exploitation and abuse in some cases. Now, this is something I'm incredibly excited about. New York can actually lead in having a domestic and home care worker labor standards board. We have to actually set standards for the caring economy, which again is going to grow and grow in size. And we need clear standards so that people understand exactly what workers are entitled to, what employment guidelines need to be, and make it so that workers are actually able to do this over an extended period of time in a way that does not sacrifice their physical health, their mental health, their family lives. This has to be something that does not systematically exploit people who, again, are the vast majority are women of color or immigrants. And so we need a standards board to set clear guidelines for all employers to follow. And then here in New York City, we can do something I'm very excited about. There's Human Rights Protection Act that unfortunately does not apply to home health care workers right now. We have to see to it that it does apply. And Debbie Rose has called for what's called Intro 339, which is applying the human rights standards. The human rights standards that apply to workers in other contexts to home health care workers. And the big message of today is that home health care workers are human beings. They are oftentimes mothers, women of color. We have been treating them as if they are somehow not human for far too long, and it needs to change. We need change in New York City, and this is one area I will be very, very happy to change on behalf of the people that have been laboring in the shadows, taking care of others, and neglected for far too long. Now it's question time. Is that right, Doug? You want to be traffic cop? For me, Ron, Sarah, Eileen. Dave Weigel's asking a question. Come on, Dave.
Can you just describe as a progressive policy? Why do you think, John Yass, there are Republican, libertarian billionaires giving this impact on your behalf, yet you're supporting this policy? One, why do you think you're supporting it? Two, what would this say to Republican donors?
I think New Yorkers of every political alignment know that we need a change. That city government doing business as usual is not working. That we're pouring money into systems that are not actually delivering for our families. Whether it's the amount of trash on our streets, whether it's the fact that the majority of school children are not actually physically in school, whether it's the fact that so many families around the city don't feel safe walking the streets of their own neighborhoods. So New Yorkers of every background know that we need something different. And I'm thrilled with how broad our coalition is in terms of what people think of as political ideology. New Yorkers just want our city to work for us. And one thing I'll say is that there's no ideological way to pick up the trash. There's no ideological way to see to it that our city agencies are actually delivering at a higher value than that we've been experiencing as a city for far too long. And so our coalition is very broad in terms of what people think of as political ideology, but it's also very broad in terms of race, age, demographic, background, class. And so New Yorkers know we need something new. And that's why we're going to win on June 22nd.
Yeah. They want me to ask you, given your gaffes about the homeless shelters for domestic violence victims and also 50A, how will you convince voters that you are familiar enough with New York City government and its inner workings to be an effective mayor from day one?
New Yorkers know that we need leadership and that someone who's been embedded in our city's bureaucracies for years or even decades is not going to deliver the change that we are looking for. It's one reason why this campaign has caught fire and has been leading for so long, that people around me that I talk to every day on the streets, they're worried about the same things. Public safety, getting our schools open, jobs, quality of life, sanitation, feeling good about our city again. This is what we're going to deliver to them. This is the kind of leadership that New Yorkers have been looking for a long time.
But you're an outsider. You don't have the experience of the inner workings of government. How are you going to convince voters in the next month that you can handle it?
Again, New Yorkers know that we need a change and that someone who's been rattling around our dysfunctional bureaucracies for years and years is not going to deliver that change. Now, a lot of the folks in the bureaucracies, you know what they've learned? They've learned why things can't be done. And if you go to them and say, hey, we should do this, they will rattle off reasons why it's not possible. And that is not what New York needs right now. New York does not need excuses. New York does not need people bringing up politics as the answer when we know most of the problems around us aren't political in nature. They're just that our city is wounded and we need to get it back on its feet. People just want results. They want our bureaucracies actually having accountability and some degree of efficiency. And that's not been happening for a long, long time here in New York.
Yeah, thank you. I got a question.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you became a mayor, will you implement your basic income for the New Yorker?
I think most New Yorkers know I would love to see everyone get $1,000 a month. And that we're actually experiencing some version of that on the federal level. But here in New York City, our plan is to have targeted cash relief for people who are in extreme poverty, to try and keep them in stable situations, in some cases keep them with a roof over their head or food on the table. And we can improve the lives of tens, even hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers by trying to keep them in better situations.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, just one. I mean, you mentioned before upstairs that there were other organizations, not just CPC, that you may have encountered, that have the same kind of workforce violence going on. Can you mention, what is the current status right now? What kind of changes can you implement in the state,
Well, let's let Ron take this, because Ron's been working on these issues for a long time at the state level. But I want to say that we all know that home health care workers are being overworked and underpaid and unsupported in every environment here in New York, and that the issues that we saw here today are playing out again and again in different neighborhoods, different communities. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
What message do you have for the Yang Gang in other parts of the country? Why should they come volunteer and help out here?
Yang Gang, we are 3 weeks away from early voting. Everyone you touch could go to the polls starting 3 weeks from now. If we can make our vision clear to the folks in New York, we have a chance to kick off a revolution. And there have been so many people here in New York that have been waiting for something different. Let's give them something different, win this race, and then just keep on going from there. So I'd absolutely love to have you all here in New York City. There's a good chance I'll run into you, just like is happening now. And then I will be so pumped because I'll immediately know what I'll probably recognize a significant number of you. But let's go. Plus, hey, it's early summer in New York
nice
City.
Weather here, right?
Nice weather. You've always wanted to come on out. Food is great. The weather's good. And it's going to be a blast. So thank you. Come on out. Let's go. Let's do it.